Hello, and welcome to Tigress on Tuk Tuk, a nature podcast specifically for urbanites such as yourself. I'm your host, Sarah Mohan, and if you can't already tell, I am way more excited than I usually am whilst recording an episode because right now I am this swooning fangirl, giddy with admiration for this amazing woman who is the queen of all kinds of awesomeness. I'm lucky to meet the most incredible folks in all my guests and make these great connections with them. That's why I always go meet them and record this in person. But some connections go beyond just those few hours of recording. The things a guest says and watching them do what they do is inspiring and impactful in a massive way for me, personally. And it's not just about their work, it's also how they are as humans and all the exceptional stuff that they embody, how they walk the talk and strut the stuff. Oh, I love doing this podcast. So much more right now for getting me to meet this lady and hang out for a couple of hours on her peaceful, bright, breezy terrace, following her around as she went about tending to her compost pots, poking around in her terrace garden, saying hello to her earthworms, and all the while really showing me what it means to do something about all this crap, waste, trash, garbage, whatever you want to call it, that we humans produce and are currently burying the planet under. Our guest today is extremely well known and well loved both on social media and otherwise. She's super popular for the infinite ways in which she advocates for sustainable living and making choices that have minimal impacts on the environment. So I went over to her lovely home in Bangalore, straight from the train station actually, and she'd so sweetly asked me to stay for lunch after our recording, and oh my god, what a marvelous meal she whipped up, replete with locally sourced grains and garden-fresh produce, making my taste buds and my gut do a happy dance. Oh, I'm salivating, and I remember it so clearly, despite having recorded this a while ago. So we sat down in front of my microphones and got into compost and dirt, worms and maggots, sustainable fashion, recycling, single-use plastics, eating healthy, and we even exchanged notes about the readings and inferences of both our continuous glucose monitors, CGMs. I was sporting one at the time as well. She has been a long-standing CGM champion, which has helped her turn her health around. All right, so buckle down and enjoy this chat. No. This masterclass with composting guru, waste-slaying, plastic-reducing ninja, famous and beloved for her pointers on sustainable fashion and recycling, but equally for her rosy cheeks, supernova starry eyes, effortless charisma, and infectious enthusiasm. Here's the inspiring Maharani on a mission, the extraordinary Vani Murthy, more affectionately known as Worm Rani.
Hi, I'm Vani Murthy. I live in Bangalore, born in Bangalore, but raised in Hyderabad. I got into this space of waste management, and I am a part of a team called Solid Waste Management Roundtable. And it is the team, the people that surround me, that gave me the boost to do what I'm doing today. It's been a fantastic journey. So along the way, I've fallen in love with composting. So most people call me the compost queen.
She's the queen.
And of course, most people are curious on my Insta handle, which is called Worm Rani. How did I get that? Actually, a friend of mine, Shamla, young friend, and we are a part of a team called We Care for Malleshwaram. I live in Malleshwaram. And she was, when I started my Insta, I was looking for a name, and Vani Murthy was taken. And so I was contemplating on what I should put, and she said, you talk about worms all the time, so why not Worm Rani? Vani the Worm Rani. So that's how that name came by.
Oh, cute. It's perfect. Vani ma'am started out her composting journey in 2009. Now, there are so many resources out there today that can set you up on your composting journey, but I do get confused and stuck many times. So, what's the best way to compost and what are your options? We got to hear it from the composting queen.
So composting there are different ways to compost. One of the easiest ways are the aerobic composting. It can be just use your browns and greens and add some accelerator to so that the microbes colonize, and then it takes on its own. Make sure that it doesn't compact, and you're constantly fluffing it up so that there is enough oxygen in the breakdown process. That's aerobic composting. Anaerobic composting is the bokashi method of composting. Many opt for that because if they don't have spaces, where you can keep a bokashi bin in your kitchen. And that's a fermenting method. It's an anaerobic method. So that's also a great system to have. And then the third thing is, in the aerobic composting, you have the vermicomposting. It is, if suppose you have a garden where you're growing edibles, then vermicompost is very essential. Vermicompost is nothing but the castings of the earthworms after they feed on the food waste. What they discharge is what we are looking at, and that's dense with nutrients. The vermicastings, and that's what we are putting into our garden and growing food. So if you have a food garden, definitely vermicomposting is something that you have to do, so that you don't have to depend outside to buy the vermicompost.
Right.
So it is using these earthworms. They are the red wrigglers. You can buy them. They are not the usual earthworms that you find in the soil. They are the deep burrowing ones, what you find in the soil.
Right.
These are surface worms. So there are different classes of worms. But then what we use as for home composting is the red wrigglers. They need a certain environment. You can't load too much food because the heat they don't like. So it's a little different from the regular composting. So once you hone the skill of the regular composting, then you can go in for, because many people say, oh, I started vermicomposting and all the earthworms are out and they were dead on the floor because there was so much heat inside they couldn't take it, so they would have all fallen off. And I've experienced this. So you feel so bad about it.
Massacre.
Yeah, it's like, so it takes some time to understand. And it's amazing to see how quickly they can eat up your food. They eat almost I think double the weight of their own weight, double the quantity of food of their own weight. I mean, I can't imagine eating double my weight food.
Wonder what your glucose monitor will have to say about that.
So it's like they are amazing, and for me they are like my soldiers. They are the warriors of the planet. Because earthworms are the digesters, primary digesters in the soil. If the farmer doesn't have earthworms, he's no farmer.
Screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just some commercial guy,
Right.
using all kinds of things to grow food.
I'm just curious, do you talk to your worms? I would, if I had them. I mean, I talk to my plants. I'm sure you talk to your plants. Do you talk to
Plants
your worms?
are okay. Worms, of course. I knock on their door before I give them food as I'm coming in.
Right.
And they're damn cute. When I separate the castings from the worms, they hate light.
Right.
And they are the creatures of the dark. They need to stay inside moist and dark spaces. So when I have to separate them, I have to spread them in the open, and they all bunch together at the bottom, and I feel so bad for them every time I pick them. I'm sorry, guys. I have to give you fresh food. You can't sit in your shit now anymore.
You might have mixed feelings about the contents of a compost pile, especially the creatures who live in it. But your compost heap is a remarkable little ecosystem, bustling with life, both visible and invisible. Wriggling earthworms, an army of microorganisms, and all manner of soil dwellers like millipedes, mites, snails, beetles, and if you look closely, those creamy white, chubby larvae of black soldier flies, which can sometimes weird you out a bit, Took some getting used to for me.
The soldier fly is harmless. It's just looking for a place to, lay its eggs so that its babies can have food. And it's just trying to complete its cycle. So the maggots in your compost bin is great because they are doing a great job eating up your food waste. They are actually converting them faster into a end material that you are looking for to put it back into your soil.
Yeah.
So they are great. Only thing people freak out. Just get friendly with them. That's an ecosystem. Just accept it. I want to go to the jungle and go to a resort, but I don't want ants. I don't want spiders, and I don't want any creepy crawlies. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So if you want an ecosystem in its natural form, you need to let things thrive, whatever it attracts. So it's okay to have creepy crawlies. It's okay to have a lot of life in your visible life. There are millions of invisible ones. The microorganisms, you can't see the microorganisms. So it's like, let them be, because they're doing a job, and that only because of them you're getting that amazing nutrients for your plants.
It's a thriving, living world where old matter is constantly broken down to create new life. So, obviously being part of a community that feels this way, works towards the same things that you do, all that helps. But for you individually, can you point out a particular incident or a specific time in your life where this really, this sort of dawned on you and you were like, yes, this is it, we have to do this, and it has to be part and parcel of what I do every day.
Right.
If you could recollect or tell us about that.
I don't think there's one incident, but the very fact that I explored something outside my home gave me access to this because I have been a homemaker, very introvertish, never wanted to be with people.
What? Really?
Yeah, people will
I
be
can't
shocked when I
believe
say
that.
who I was and who I am is like a huge contrast.
Wow.
So I would be very afraid to even go and meet people on my own. I've never traveled on my own, never even gone to a market on my own.
Wow.
So I was a very dependent person. But then when my kids grew up, there is this resident welfare association in my area. One of my relatives said, why don't you join that? It'll be nice for you to get out of your home for some time at least.
From that, Vani ma'am went on to acquire thousands of followers on Instagram and now is one of the most widely networked and deeply respected people I know. You know the number of people, even outside of Bangalore, who've mentioned her to me as a potential guest? She's always busy, and it took some planning for her to cull out a few hours for this recording, but she did so gladly and generously, and her influence only continues to grow. So yeah, if you're sitting on the precipice of something, but you're doubtful about stuff or you don't know what to do, just put yourself out there. Take the plunge. Get out of your comfort zone. I've been feeling a bit lost and untethered. So yeah, this is as much a pep talk for me as it is for anyone else who needs to hear it. Let's take a leaf out of Worm Rani's compost pile.
So I think that gave me an access to understand that we all can contribute something to our neighborhood. And saying that, it gave me a little curiosity to spend a little time outside home helping them with the projects and all that, which I've never done in my life. And then my friend Dr. Meenakshi, who's a good friend, is a teammate today, she told me to get involved in a project called Wealth Out of Waste. And that was my first understanding on what really happens to the waste and how we can actually hold back resources. And then we visited the landfill and the number of people that visited the landfill became the solid waste management roundtable.
I see.
And the landfill actually is a turning point for me. If you call an incident that put me on a path, that's it. Because that's where I swore that I wouldn't, contribute to a mess, an already growing mess, and I would help people to understand that there is this mess, and we need to know that.
Yeah.
We need to know that, and we need to be aware of that.
Yeah. If you've never been to a landfill, no amount of describing or statistics from me will prepare you for the kind of sense-shocking, body-jolting experience that it is. But I'm doing it anyway. Now, there are various different kinds of wastes that municipal bodies collect and manage in different ways. It is hardly surprising that most of this waste is generated from Class 1 cities at rates far, far faster than what local municipal bodies can collect in a day. In India, over 1.7 lakh metric tons of garbage is generated each day. Now, that number means nothing to me as well, so let me paint this picture for you. That amount is enough to fill up 4,300 Olympic-sized swimming pools or spread over 1,900 football fields per day. Can you imagine that? Only about 70% of waste generated is actually collected, and of that, almost 90% of a city's waste ends up in a landfill, which is a waste management method used across the world. Landfills are these special spots that governments choose to dig up to store layer upon layer of mixed, unsegregated garbage. I looked it up, and apparently there is a multi-criteria decision-making process in the selection of landfill sites, according to one paper, but really, choosing a spot to dump garbage in close to or on the outskirts of an ever-expanding city sounds like it goes against any kind of logic or science or regard for hygiene, and totally random. It's like playing pin the tail on the donkey. Like one of the landfills in my city, Chennai, is on a marsh, a wetland that the city depends on for innumerable reasons. Records of landfills go back 5,000 years to ancient cities in Greece and China, but it seems crazy that we think that this is still a good management practice given the sheer volume and variety of waste that we generate. I've had the unfortunate opportunity of visiting this landfill in my city several times. As you stand there, with mountains of mixed, rotting waste towering many feet over you, the air reeking and saccharine, the soil mucky, leaching toxic trails underground, you realize the full impact of our ceaseless consumption and how, if we don't get a grip on this soon, we are so screwed. You'll feel a confusing mixture of intense emotions that'll make you want to take deep breaths to calm yourself. But then, how can you, with that recurring gag reflex? The trouble also is with segregation, or the lack of it, and what ends up in landfills is often a rotting jumble of unsegregated waste comprising wet, dry, organic, inorganic, all tossed together into a festering cesspool of leachate and toxins, causing a host of problems to people and the planet. Since her landfill visit, Vani ma'am has gone full-on hammer and tongs on her segregation and composting journey. So at that landfill, then you came back home and decided you're going to do, get into this whole thing of composting. And I know, even personally, I know that there comes a moment when you want to do it and you know it's great and stuff, but I've also seen how people start and stop a lot because things get messy or smelly or whatever. And people know a lot about it also, right? Now there's a lot of awareness in many organizations that can set you up and get you going. But are there any tips and tricks that you could tell us about, like that might just be like, oh, that was so simple, I didn't think about that, so we can keep this up once you start.
So when people decide to compost, it should be for a very good reason. Because you should know that is 60% of the waste that you generate. It is great resource. When it leaves your home, where does it go and how does it pollute? Because this is biodegradable waste. It's not going to the soil, it's going to the landfill. It goes in a mixed form, it gets dumped somewhere, and piles of such such garbage which has a lot of these organic matter will start breakdown anaerobically, and that's where the methane gets out. So when you understand the destination of what you have discarded and how that is affecting the climate change, because methane is a greenhouse gas, which is like worse than carbon dioxide. And that's polluting the air. There's this leachate that gets into the groundwater and the soil around, and it's coming back to us in some form or the other. So when you get that and then make a choice because you are aware what happens to that, and it is a great resource today with so much of agriculture that depends on fertilizers and pesticides, the soil is completely getting depleted. So there is no organic matter in the soil. So to learn that this amazing resource can go back to build that soil, I think it's win-win both ways. You're not polluting, at the same time you are regenerating. So we have two things that we can, in one action, you're addressing two problems. So I think if that becomes a main choice that you've made, a focus that you have, then I think composting will never be daunting, because most of us have the constraints in our head. It's not about the process. So once you understand the process, it's experiential learning. It's okay to have problems. It's okay to fail. I failed terribly when I did for the first time. But thing is, you already know why you're doing it. So once you know why you're doing it, I think the success is about learning as you do. It's teaching you. When it starts to smell, you wonder why. Then you will start looking, asking people, you see, then you know that it's become too wet, it's become compacted, it's become anaerobic. That is why it's smelling. So it's as simple as that the browns were less. So you add some more browns and turn the pile and introduce some air. So the oxygen is available for these these microorganisms which are aerobic in nature. They need oxygen to break down. So there is a science behind it. You will start understanding the science, a little of the science. You don't have to know the science. I don't know the science. You ask me what are the different microbes that are in the compost bin, I'll draw a blank, because there are microbes. I know there is a life in it. I know there's an ecosystem there. I wouldn't specifically know what are those different creatures which come in different stages of the composting process. So it is about that, never giving up, because this is something that I have to hold back and put back to where it belongs. It belongs to the soil. So I think that excitement itself will propel you to go through the process, take every challenge as some learning. And I think, like in life, that is the general rule that when you fail, you don't just fall and not pick yourself up. You have to get up, you have to pick it up, you have to learn. So I think that's the experiential learning and the excitement of actually honing the skill of composting. It's an art. More than a science. To me, it's an art. So it's okay if the creepy crawlies, people are scared. If the soil doesn't have life in it, it won't have a healthy nutrients available for the plant to absorb.
So that's probably when you should be scared.
Exactly. So if it is a soil that has only chemicals in it, you're not getting the right amount of nutrients. And soil, life in soil and your gut health are so connected. If the life is depleted in the soil, your gut is going to suffer a lot, because a lot of microbes that you need to have a healthy gut. See how it's connected. If you put the dots together, you will know that we are destroying everything that helps life thrive on this planet by just being unmindful of how we live. The kind of lifestyle we have. We eat processed food which don't have any nutrition. It's stripped of all nutrition. And we are too over hygienic, constantly trying to be sanitized. It's not going to help because we are I think more than who we are, it is the other creatures in your body. I mean, the microorganisms, the bacteria, the fungi, they are the ones who are keeping your system running. If you're going to destroy that by being over sanitized, I think other things will colonize, and that's where we'll get all kinds of virus and pandemic. You can see you can connect all the dots there.
I am never washing this hand again.
When we talk about a zero waste lifestyle or sustainability per se, for an urbanite who might not even have the time to think about it or might find it too complicated, where does one begin? And I know there are multiple things that you could do, but where can we start? And then a few things that we can build on.
Right. I don't think there's anything called zero waste, not in human beings, but every other species on this planet is zero waste.
I appreciate your honesty.
Because they don't generate anything that the earth can't digest. But forget human beings. How much ever they strive, they cannot be zero waste. So the whole thing is about low waste living. And yes, urbanites are so, I don't think they have even time to think about things other than what they're already in, with stress levels so high. Children are very difficult to rear in these days because they're so much exposed, and they have too many distractions. So to connect them, to say that this is one planet and this planet needs a little nurturing, we should be very mindful of how we are polluting her. That takes some time for people to understand. And most people have this saying that, if I change, nothing is going to change. So, just by one person changing. So they don't realize that when you make a difference, when you do things that are less polluting, then you are making a difference. So sustainability is a path. You evolve. You don't have to worry and feel that you're not doing enough, because most people are in that realm that, am I doing enough? But the very fact that you start picking up practices that are for your entire life. It's not like a trend or some fad that's happening and everybody is talking about it and let me do it, and then after some time you're not a part of that.
Right.
Like on World Environment Day, they pick up something like they'll go and do on that day, and the rest of the year again they wait for an Earth Day or an Environment Day to do something for the planet.
Yeah.
It's not that. Pick up practice that you can sustain for the rest of your life.
Right.
That is sustainability. That's the path to sustainability. So there are hundreds of practices that we can inculcate as a daily practice, and just being mindful about the resources that we are using up, and at the end of life, where does it go? How does it affect life on this planet? Is something that it's an education, it's through awareness. So once we connect, I think all of us can slowly evolve to be this person who walks lightly on this planet. I think sustainability is the need for the hour.
Right.
It's a new term, but this is what our grandparents and before that generations lived.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new, they never had a tissue paper to use. You cut down trees to make paper, and then the tissue paper you use once and you discard. They never had anything like that. So they were actually not having much waste. Even whatever they generated was going back to the soil, So they would reuse and repair and everything. So it was like extend the use of an item for the longest time. So just being mindful of that and bring back all those, things,
practices.
old practices.
Yeah.
I think that will make you to stay on that path.
Other than just this, so when you talk about low waste living, this is such an important part of your life, and I think it takes care of so much, right? But I think you also have so many other great ideas, so many other aspects of an urban lifestyle that could be tweaked to be more geared towards this sort of a lifestyle. So if you could give us a couple of these ideas that takes us beyond just composting, you know?
Yeah, of course. See, the thing is, first of all, you have to understand anything that you generate needs a destination. So what you can't manage, don't generate. I mean, that's very radical. You in today's world, you can't be like that. But as far as possible, don't generate anything that you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And you know that it's not going for recycling or composting. So the best way to have a sustained lifestyle that is keeps you less of a burden on this planet is to recognize all these things that could be waste immediately after use, and that can't be recycled. It will end up somewhere on this planet. So saying no to anything that is single use could be a great way. That's again its own journey that a lot of people would wonder if I have to carry all this to refuse, single use when I go and travel. I said, yeah, it's better to carry this burden than become a burden on the planet, right? And then, so carry your own bags, water bottles so that you refuse a bottled water, have a kerchief so that you can say no to a napkin, a paper napkin, maybe a tumbler, a straw, it doesn't come suddenly, but you need to practice every time you leave home. What is it that I can carry? If I have to, maybe I'll need to stop for a tea. What if they given a paper cup? If I have my own tumbler, I can, take it from there. Maybe I need to drink a tender coconut water. So I will say no to the straw before he puts it into my drink, and then, drink it without a straw. So why do I need a straw? So small things like that. So you have a small kit that could make a huge difference when you travel, when you leave home.
Vani ma'am gave me a full breakdown of her travel kit with all manner of sustainable alternatives. There's a full video of it, which you must go watch on the Tigress on Tuk Tuk Instagram page. She's all over my Instagram feed, man, and I love it because she's equal parts inspiring and cute.
And at home also, when you have functions, when you have parties, birthday parties, make sure you are generating any, after celebrations, there's nothing that is going out of your house to harm this planet, because you're celebrating her also.
Right.
You're celebrating the ecosystem, the environment, along with the celebrations that you're having. So keep that in mind when you celebrate. That's another thing that all of us can do mindfully. And the second thing is, of course, now the biggest polluter is your fashion, the fast fashion. So if we are careful on what we source from where is the cotton grown, is it synthetic? Synthetic is very, very polluting. So this instead of fast fashion, why not look at people who are in this where it is sustainable, ethically sourced, that everybody in the chain is having equal, they're getting the rewards for their efforts, right from the tailor to the the guy who is dyeing with naturalism, not with some chemical dyes, and the guy there's no bleaching, so that the cotton is not bleached, so that and so the spinning person and the grower, the cotton grower. So if you are conscious of that chain, I think you will want to buy from such people, so that your also the livelihood is there and you're contributing to that, than buy things that you're not even sure what happens to that industry, how that industry functions, and how are they taking care of all the waste that comes out, and how it's polluting our rivers and water. So I think this is another thing that we can start thinking and move towards that. But we have to be careful about the greenwashing that happens. So a lot of brands will come up saying that we don't we are like this, like that. So you need to be a little more homework, look at people who are into this sustainable living, and get some tips from them.
So sustainable fashion is definitely on the rise, but it is not always easy to access or prioritize. There are many factors that affect this, and perhaps we will get into it in another episode. All I can say right now is make sure you don't fall for gimmicky greenwashing claims that many mainstream fast fashion brands resort to.
And the last thing I would say is my entire journey has ended up with the choices that I make on what I eat. So having composted and grown my food, I can't grow all my food, but the very fact that I found a farmer in me, I discovered a farmer in me, because if you grow a couple of edible plants, you are a farmer, because you knew how to sow that seed, and how you took care of that. No, you don't take care of the plant takes care of itself, as long as you give it in a good environment. There's enough sunlight, you're not overwatering or underwatering, and you're giving them the compost and other things that they need, natural things that they need. And once you grow your food, that you're not going to opt for a food that you don't know who grows. So I have stopped having any processed food in my house. I cook fresh food. All my vegetables, grains, my oils, everything is sourced from farmers on a CSA, community supported agriculture, which is like amazing, because there are the farmers on the other side who know that they wouldn't want to poison their land, and they're growing food in the agriculture, what they have understood from what has come down from traditions.
Wow.
So when such farmers you're connected, you're so grateful. They are local, regional, seasonal. They don't grow anything that is like exotic. You get a lettuce or some broccoli and all that. Of course, a lot of farmers are growing it. Not that I don't source them, but basically my weekly basket is regular farmers who are growing. Maybe they'll be sending the same vegetables again and again, but I'm okay with that, because I know they are safe for me to eat. And this is the seasonal one, and that's how he has the heirloom seeds. He's not buying any GM seeds. So it in many ways that I am contributing to lesser depletion of the soil by choosing to eat my food, which is grown by a farmer who understands this. So just opting that itself. People say organic food. It's organic is a very new word. Maybe it's certification, but for me, it's a trust that this farmer believes. Many farmers, they'll say they would use all kinds of chemicals, and they would say, "Do you eat what you're selling?" He'll say, "No, we have another patch. We don't put aushadhi," they'll say.
Oh.
Yes, I have met farmers like that. They'll say we have not put aushadhi. That means we have not sprayed anything in that patch, because that's what we eat.
Shucks.
Yeah. So it's again. I mean, I wouldn't even judge him, because he's just a businessman. He wants to sell. This is how it is, and we need to be very mindful of how we source. Don't say organic is expensive, because you should know why the other food is so cheap. If you say that's expensive, we spend money on so many things. Why not put good stuff in our body, which is nourishing us, and not killing us. We don't have to run to the doctors very often if we get into a lifestyle of eating safe food.
Yeah.
And people will keep asking different questions on how do you know that they haven't sprayed and this and that. Again, trust.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately, you never question when you went and picked up in the departmental store the colorful looking, even sized, glossy vegetables. You never question
Even sized.
how much.
I don't know why that bothers people.
Exactly.
I've always wondered.
It's not crooked and it's no, and it's like so it looks so nice, but how much of nutrition is there in it? And you don't know what he has sprayed. Did you ever question him? Why are you questioning a person who says I'm growing naturally? I'm growing without pesticides and chemicals. So the trust is what's so important. You trusted that to eat that food, but you don't trust to eat a better food.
If you dig around a bit, I bet you will find community-supported agriculture collectives and farmers in your city from where you will be able to source locally grown, seasonal, pesticide-free, fresh produce. Now, in India, classifying something as organic is a bit tricky, and there exists a whole spectrum of what this means, but certification aside, do your research and choose collectives and organizations that really adhere to these holistic practices, not just in theory, but in spirit as well. Okay, so these are fairly big lifestyle choices, and making these changes can sometimes be difficult, especially if you're a family and the decision is not just yours. But there are small, everyday things that you can do. When it comes to a low-waste lifestyle, sweat the small stuff, for it will make a difference. Recycling, for example, requires small but important steps that you can take.
So recycling, India, it is very vibrant because you see waste pickers on the streets.
The Kabadiwalas,
No, you see people picking waste from dumps.
Oh, right.
You see them. Why?
Yeah.
Because they see value in the stuff that we throw out. So in a dump in the corner of your road, you would see early morning, you'll see the rag pickers picking stuff from that dump. They will they'll pick up good plastic, they will take out paper if it is clean. So for them, there is no dignity because we just dump a mixed waste.
Yeah.
But the minute you know that there is a livelihood that depends on it, there are people who work in this area, why not recognize that all that you generate, which is recyclable, can go clean, and so that it reaches them. It's not just about you keeping them separately, but you make sure that it reaches them. Kabadiwala may not take everything. There is this corner, the guy will take newspapers and things which are of high value, but there are so many things that we generate which are of low value.
Right.
But if you send it to a waste collection center, dry waste collection center, they sort and grade on all these. In Bangalore, one of the best things that happened is that this informal sector have been given this kind of from rag pickers and waste pickers, they've become waste managers, where they run these centers where you send, every ward has one, where you send either if you're a large apartment, they'll come and pick it up once a fortnight or once a week, or maybe collection twice a week, depends on the service they're providing. They're service providers. They come and pick it up.
So the government has taken steps to set up dry waste collection centres in different states. You should be able to find one in your city. Start with a basic dry waste collection centres near me Google search. Threw up quite a few useful results for me.
It's clean dry waste that you need to keep. Suppose you have a milk packet. Milk packet is good plastic that can go back to recycling. As long as you rinse out that milk, extra milk, put that water into your tea or when you're making something, and then clean it up, dry it, let it drip, put it on the tile, where it's hanging. Don't snip the plastic. That little plastic that is with that, people usually cut it off.
Yeah.
So you just make sure it stays in the cover itself, and then dry it, then put it in your dry waste collection. So anything that is kept clean, you're giving dignity to these people. First of all, it's not stinking when it reaches them, because when they open up, there are people who are sending recycling stuff, and there is box where there's food in it, and when you open it stings. It's so nauseating to even open that, and they don't have the bandwidth to clean it and put it for it. So you get lost. Anything that can be recycled gets lost because it's dirty. So when it's not an extra effort, people think, oh, we have to do this extra work. No, if you eat in a plate in your home, you wash it and put it in the plate stand. You don't just put the dirty plate in the stand. Same way, whatever you use, if there is food, just clean it up with other things that you're cleaning, and then dry it and send it to the recycling. So recycling can be, we can really push the recycling a lot by if every citizen believes that they will send clean waste, clean recyclable waste. So every bit of paper, all the plastics that your takeaway dabbas, to your shampoo bottles, to everything can be recycled.
Easy peasy.
There's glass that can go for recycling. Even your e-waste, but it has to go for an authorized person, e-waste. Okay. So you find out who are the authorized people. Collect e-waste is not every day. Keep a small cardboard box in your home and put all your e-waste in it. Everything, your chargers and everything into it, so that you collect over a period of time. Then find out if there is a drive in your city, e-waste collection drive. Just make that little effort to find out where there is a drop-off point. Can somebody come and collect it from your apartment? If you all of you will collect together. So I think small things like this will go a long way. Just to be mindful that it doesn't end up somewhere, because if e-waste ends up with a unauthorized person, he will engage children to open them up. There is so much of toxins that come out. So you need to send it only to an authorized collector. And shifting away from using sanitary waste, which is like when you go back to alternatives for sanitary waste, you're not generating that sanitary waste, because you don't know if a waste picker is handling it, or it's ending up in the landfill or in some river, or ending up in your drains, clogging it. You move to cloth pads and menstrual cups, then you're making a big difference. Same way, diapering now. Recently, I've seen so many mothers so proudly cloth diapering their children, not using, disposable diapers. So again, if you're disposing, it's convenient for you to use a sanitary pad, a disposable sanitary pad, or a disposable diaper. But what happens to it? How is it affecting? So if you realize that little shift, and then that little effort becomes a big part of you. When you get up, you brush your teeth. It's so automatic. You don't think twice, so much time, I have to put so much effort to brush. You don't. You do it automatically. Same way, you get into that habit of, saying that I'm not going to discharge anything that, is going to pollute my environment. And also resources are being used to make those products, and those products have so much of pesticides, and there's dyes, and there's fragrances which are not good for our body. Our skin absorbs all of them. So it's also your health and your environment health. So any sustainable practice you take, both ways it helps. You're not polluting the environment, and also you're not harming yourself.
I realize that a lot of this is not super easy to do. It's doable, just requires a modicum of effort and planning, and in today's world it can be daunting, especially if you're just starting out. You might also wonder how much you saying no to a straw might help shrink a landfill, but there's ample work that's been done to show that individual choices matter as much as collective action and policy-level changes. I think we all just need to start with one thing that we can do, and then build from there.
So it's ultimately the choices we make.
And
all
the mindsets we have.
Mindsets. And also awareness. When you close yourself up, and I have no time to think about it, and it's too daunting, because that's what people say. They get eco-anxiety if they have to do things which is not convenient. Today is a time we live with, everything has to be convenient. And once you have to say it's not convenient for you, then you hesitate, you block yourself. You don't want to enter that, because it becomes very anxious for you.
Right.
So stress levels go up and all. But then once you open your door, I think this is the best space to be. You feel so good about yourself. You feel good about everything. And the kind of people that appear in your horizon are amazing. You meet the right kind of people, motivating and inspiring each other. So the journey becomes so awesome.
Vani Murthy is living proof of that. She instills hope and inspires change with every action she takes. A role model who's everyone's favorite. I'm sure her 350k Instagram followers will agree. The thing that really struck me, though, is how it's so effortless for her. She does all of this because she loves it, and that's what shines through.
So it's fun, because, I never thought I could reach out to lakhs of people, and touch them to make them think about something that they could do. And that's like my daily high, getting DMs telling what a difference I have made. And just the belief that I can make a difference has
Absolutely.
been a fantastic way to be.
Yeah.
I've evolved to be a better person.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
So for me, I can never tire of talking about composting. For me, it's an everyday thing for me
Yeah.
that I do. It's a daily action. So I feel if I could reach to more people. So more than a decade, I have been talking nonstop, and still people are following me and asking me questions about it. And so it's almost every other day I'm putting something about composting, because that becomes a mission in my life, because I know that I would reach out to somebody who would want to come onto this path
Yeah.
and make a difference to this world.
Yeah.
So-
Plus, you're the compost queen, so you can't just, switch off.
Impossible. I can't even imagine a life when I am not in the space that I am. Even if I'm traveling, I'll think, what can I talk about? What can I put? So I think because I found that social media is very powerful, and if I'm using it for the right cause, it excites me.
yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
and a lot of people know about me. I have no problem talking about who I am. So yeah, so it's
That's amazing. May your reign never end.
Thank you.
I think of Vani ma'am as an artist who uses various mediums to create her masterpiece, her low-waste lifestyle. And that's exactly the kind of approach we need. The problems we've created for ourselves and the planet in terms of solid waste management are gargantuan and seemingly impossible to solve. It will take concerted effort from all of us with all manner of creative, ingenious solutions to try and get past the consequences of our crappy choices. Also, relentless, uncrushable optimism. That was my biggest takeaway from Vani Murthy. You must, if you don't already, follow her on Instagram at WormRani. Please also follow the show at Tigress on Tuk Tuk on Instagram. Do spread the word. Tell a friend or a family member about this podcast. That would be the best way you can support the show right now. All right, I hope I've kept you company through whatever chore or long drive or whatever it is that you're up to. Now go on and tackle the next thing on your list and maybe give the compost pot a spin. I'll catch you soon with yet another guest and we'll go off together on another poke about. Until next time, toodles!